It's not enough to just do one thing. It's time that we do a whole lot of things and a whole lot of things very quickly. So, Laura, let me just start with you. Today was terrifying. Everyone was up in arms. Everybody was scared. I felt so sorry for the staff at Metro Animal Services, especially Stephanie Jackson, who had to break this news. The entire staff was concerned not only for the animals in their care at the shelter, but also for the contagion, because they carry, this is carried by fomites on clothes, on shoes, on pet hair, taking it home to their own animals. They discovered that the dog called Patient Zero was brought in Tuesday night, and anything that came in or went out after that was, potentially on the state of rescue. Right now, and why so many
15, it was to help LMAS and other local Kentucky shelters with their excess, or with dogs that had medical issues that the shelters couldn't necessarily afford, heartworm, a broken leg, various things like that. And that was something that PBSF has always prided themselves on. We took the heartworm dogs and the wonky-legged dogs, or dogs that needed medical care. Or we also, for a long time, really took in a lot of black dogs, because again, nobody wants black dogs, so we would pull them to open that space up in the shelters. And since I have been with PBSF, I've been in rescue for a long time. I've been with PBSF since 2018, and we finally realized, it started hitting us kind of last year, but this year especially, the reason why we exist is not helpful anymore. Being a foster-based rescue isn't cutting it. We don't have that many fosters, right now, because it is a lot of a commitment, and dogs aren't getting adopted, and people don't want to commit to long-term. It's just really disheartening. So we had started looking at other ways. We started a community spay-neuter program, because yes, we have SNP and it's a great program, but they're booked all the time. All right. We hear is, I tried to get in at SNP and they're 6 months out. I tried to get into SNP and they're not taking appointments. We need, more resources for spay and neuter. And honestly, we need resources to stop the breeders, not legitimate registered breeders. I'm not even going to go into that, but the backyard breeders, the puppy mill, the puppygram, that kind of crap. Our city needs to do something about it, because they're the ones that are just, breeding and breeding and breeding. And now one of the issues we have is all of a sudden the backyard breeders are like, oh, this isn't really making me money anymore. So now they're dumping the doodles everywhere. So it's just, huskies are everywhere, German shepherds. It's not just the pit bulls. It's dogs that, people had always wanted and couldn't hardly get a hold of. And now
French bulldogs everywhere.
Frenchies, but badly bred Frenchies, but still Frenchies.
Yep.
And today when I heard, what was going on at LMAS, it struck fear in my heart. It hurt my heart for, our colleagues that work there, who are so dedicated and do so much and are just so overwhelmed. And I thought, I can't imagine if it would have been positive, what it was going to add to them and what it was going to add to our community. Parvo's always one of those things that, like, we're freaked out about and everything, but it can be a little bit more contained. It's not, it's mainly puppies, things like that, which is still a horrible disease. But distemper, it knows no age, no bounds, no anything. And the thought that we could have an outbreak, Memphis, Tennessee has distemper outbreaks a lot. And, it's because they have this community stray program to where they encourage people to feed and care for the stray dogs. And what they've learned is, well, that along with, even if they trap and release the stray dogs, like you usually do cats, the distemper is rising, rabies is rising, parvo, all these diseases are constantly hitting the shelter down there.
Yep.
And that was all I could think of was, has our stray population hit that amount that we're now going to have this huge distemper outbreak. Luckily it wasn't, but everyone should know that it could happen at any moment.
Yes, and thank you for that excellent summary. And of course, we always are asking for fosters to step up for rescues as well as shelters, and to realize that shelters are the main source of dogs that rescues pull from. And if rescues don't have fosters, they cannot pull from shelters. So if you cannot sign up to adopt or foster for a shelter, you can do so for a rescue. So thank you for that very much, Laura. Let's talk a little bit to Megan Thomas, who has a company called Pinch Spice downtown. She and her husband Thomas are great animal rescuers. They came from a background of rescue in Chicago. Megan put up an Amazon wish list a few weeks ago, and tons of people donated leashes, collars, smart ID tags, and so much more for distribution into the very, very high need areas of town, particularly the West End and the South End, where just literally hundreds of dogs are loose on the streets. And we won't even talk about the cats, because the cats are a whole nother problem. The community cat population is enormous and growing. People are dumping their own cats into those community cat populations, which are supposed to be TNR'd, trapped, neutered, and returned. Alley Cat Advocates has done a great job of that for several decades. But let's just talk about the hundreds of dogs any time of day. You can look on any of over a dozen lost and found pages in Louisville. And that doesn't include the little community groups. That includes the major lost and found dog pages and cat pages. Hundreds of dogs at any given moment. My dog got away. If you see him, let me know. My dog got out of my fence again. My dog went out the front door when the kids opened it. You know, we say snip, chip, tag, and contain for a reason. And Megan has jumped into this full force starting last fall. She's been working with us on a daily basis, been an integral part of today's catch, which we appreciate so much. So Megan, talk to us about some of your concerns, not only as a business owner in the West End and a resident of the Highlands, but just from the perspective of what your life experience has taught you about these animals and the suffering that they are going through.
Thank you, Tara, and I'm really honored to be part of this group of so many people that are making impact in this city for many, many years and decades. We are at a crisis that we haven't seen, and I've only been here 6 years. I come from Chicago. Trust me, there's plenty of problems with dogs and cats in Chicago. Coming here was a bit of a shock, though. I am not convinced that our leaders understand the level of crisis that we're at. If so, I would expect more funding to go to spay and neuter programs and to vaccinations. We are on the street, and I can't tell you how many times I go look for somebody's lost dog and I pick up one dog, two dogs. The other day, I had two dogs in my car and I came across a third dog I had to pick up that were all strays and not claimed by owners. Yep. These pets are not showing up out of nowhere. They are being dumped by people who maybe had good intentions and wanted to get a pet, and maybe because of financial situations could not afford them. LMAS doesn't accept owner relinquishments anymore because they are so full. So they will set up an appointment. Usually that appointment's very much in the future. So people go to LMAS as a city service and they say, hey, I don't even have a home anymore. How am I going to take care of my dog? And the people at the front desk are heartbroken for them, but they say, we have no room. We cannot take owner relinquishments. So what happens? These people who are facing the victims themselves often dump the pets in a park because they think maybe that's the safest. It is not. Dumping your pet anywhere is not safe, or in other neighborhoods. And this is happening all over the city. I have picked up dogs in Cherokee Park neighborhood. I've picked up dogs in where my business is in Portland. I've picked up dogs in the outer loop. This is happening absolutely everywhere. We need immediate funds to be able to help people to keep the pets that they want to keep, to take care of the pets they have, and to help implement spay and neuter across the city. I believe it should be mandatory. There's no other way we're going to stop this crisis. A lot of people are breeding dogs. A lot of people are getting accidental litters. What happens with those puppies once they realize they can't sell them because no one's buying dogs? they're getting dumped. Someone on our team just picked up 3 puppies and a mama today. These issues are critical. These issues don't just affect these beautiful beings that don't deserve this, these dogs and cats and other animals. This is an issue for people that live in neighborhoods that their kids can't play outside because there are so many stray dogs, and who knows if they're vaccinated. LMAS is wonderful. They have so many hardworking people. I can't imagine what they go through. They do not have the resources. And the leaderships, people, right now, there is no leadership. They are looking for somebody. We need someone to come in immediately with the right skill set and demand that the city work with LMAS and its citizens to get appropriate funding to help stop this crisis. I come from a much bigger city, Chicago. I love this town. We intentionally moved our business and our family and our home and our dogs to Louisville because we loved this town and we always will love it. But I have seen how larger cities function. The way the city functions with its Louisville Metro Animal Services and the lack of funding to it is not acceptable. I'm not sure if it's whether or not Metro Council members don't understand the problem or if it's a funding issue, but this is a quality of life issue for all. We need funding immediately, and we need to go to the places where people need it the most. It's a lot to ask someone, especially if they don't have a car, especially if a bus ride is expensive, which it is for a lot of people. We need to be able to go in mobile clinics and give vaccinations and microchips and schedule them for spay and neuter and then get them transportation there. We have wonderful rescues like PBSF. I have adopted both my dogs from PBSF Dog Rescue. I foster for them. They're amazing. They are helping. They're saying, okay, we're trying to get spay and neuters going, and they're taking on people's personal pets because the city is unable to offer affordable spay and neuter. That is simply unacceptable, especially with this scare of distemper. Thank God it's not. But this should be a wake-up call that we should be offering free distemper and other vaccinations in the neighborhoods that are highest risk, and then offering low or no cost vaccinations to households that qualify at LMAS. There should be emergency budget toward this. So I know I'm speaking very firmly, but as somebody who sees dogs on the streets, I have them in my homes. I have to drop them at LMAS sometimes if we don't have fosters. This is heartbreaking. We see the animals that get euthanized. We meet them. We love them. They're getting euthanized right now for no fault of their own, except there's just no more space. And while the city and LMAS needs to take action and have a strategic plan and have strategic budget for it, we need the community to step up more than ever. And you guys have in so many ways. That wish list of items that we needed, leashes and collars to help people keep their pets contained, that was an amazing show of support. The Highlands Neighborhood Group donated a ton. PBSF Dog Rescue donated a ton. We had neighbors from West Louisville donating a ton. We had neighbors from the Outer Loop to every other neighborhood donating. That was amazing. Now what we need is people to either or both step up and say, I'm going to be a first-time foster because I want to save a dog's life. You will not only save that dog's life, you'll save the life of a dog in a shelter that would be euthanized for space. I promise you can do it. When I first did it 10 plus years ago, I never thought I could foster. It's the most rewarding thing ever.
It is.
And then we also need you to help donate to places like PBSF Dog Rescue, who are helping fund low cost and sometimes $50 for a neuter, $75 for a spay. That's unheard of. They are funding that, but they need help funding that. They're a smaller organization and they do not get the grants that big organizations do. And currently, right, big organizations in Louisville are not filling the need of spay and neuter. So please, if you can right now, please go to PBSF Dog Rescue's website or their Facebook page and donate to them to help stop this. And please talk to your family. really consider if you can take in a dog, if you can take in a cat. They have dogs of all sizes, all breeds. I found the fluffiest freaking dogs on the street, and I found the most awesome pit bulls on the street. There is a dog for everybody. Please go to LMAS's website and say, become a foster and apply. Please, the city needs to do something. LMAS needs to do something, and us citizens, us animal lovers need to say, I can't just watch this anymore. I am going to do something. Please help. And thank you to everybody who is part of the solution.
Very good. Thank you so much, Megan. Lauren, we'll talk to Lauren Kasdan next, who is also an Uber foster. She takes in dogs quite frequently, the ones that members of our team catch for an overnight, which often turns into a stray hold, which often turns into a permanent foster situation, in addition to having her own crew of dogs. So when people say, I have a dog that I can't take another dog in, we kind of laugh and say, yeah, well, look at Kasdan. She's got a whole frickin' zoo over there. But the truth of the matter is, anybody who doesn't have a dog in their home needs to consider that right now, as Megan said. But even if you do have a dog, there are ways to separate them. So let's just talk a little bit about crate and rotate and managing multiple dogs in a home when some of them are fosters. Are you muted, Lauren? I think you're muted. We'll let her figure that out. Desiree, let's go ahead with you. She's going to have to figure out how to get herself unmuted. Desiree, you have done the same thing. You've fostered, you've taken in dogs. You have gone out on rescues. You've gotten greyhounds off kitchen counters, all of those things. But please talk about the importance of adding to your space and separating animals when they come in as strays.
Well, one thing that we've said over and over again is it's not a problem with LMAS. It is a community problem, and the community has to step up. It is not complicated to foster. You do not have to have your dog be around the foster at all. If you have a spare bedroom that you could put the dog in, the dog just needs a place to decompress. It does not need a play pal. It does not need anything other, food, water, and decompression. One of the main things you want to do if it's a stray is make sure that, wherever it goes to the bathroom is not the same place that your dog is going to the bathroom, because it's a stray. You don't know, anything about that dog. So, it's easy to just make sure that you keep your dog separated. And, we have people that put them in garages as long as the garage doesn't get too hot or cold. Bathrooms that they don't use, spare bedrooms, basement. I have 3 puppies and a mama dog that was caught, in my house right now in 2 different crates because, there was no place to take them tonight. And thank goodness the LMAS is open tomorrow because now they can go there. And it was scary today whenever, we got that call that, they were closed, because those of us who are out there on the streets know that we're going to find a dog. It doesn't matter if we're looking for one or not. There are so many out there in the community loose right now. And with this heat, they are not going to make it. So if we see a dog, no matter what we're doing, we stop and we try to help. And we have to have more people step up. We have to have some place for that dog to go. It doesn't need to go and stay at LMAS whenever there's so many thousands of people in this city that have the ability to foster that just don't. I'm begging people constantly that I know that don't have any pets. Please, you don't have any pets. It's not that complicated. Take it in. Help us.
And one thing I want to point out too is Desiree just mentioned the mama and 3 puppies. There are multiple teams in this city that go out and search, track dogs. And one of the teams that did catch the mama, discovered the 3 puppies, is still out there trying to catch the dad. Kudos to them. Kudos, big cheers to every single group of people that gets together for a singular purpose. Sometimes we merge teams. Sometimes there are people we're wild worried about animals, and we're really worried about our unhoused population. Done, derail. Honestly, we are all very skilled in unhoused outreach as well. This is not specific to saying we should put animals above the homeless citizens. We're saying this was the crisis of the day. This is the house that was on fire today, and we're putting out the fire on this house. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, back to Lauren now. Do you have your mic going, Lauren? I just unmuted you. There you go. I'm still not hearing from you. I'm so sorry. Something's wrong with your sound. So don't know what that is, but we go back. Jen just jumped in and said fosters get support from LMAS Rescue. Was this mentioned? Yeah, let's talk about that just a little bit. When you take a dog to Louisville Metro Animal Services that you have found, you can sign up to be field fosters. That means the finder of the dog can register the dog at Louisville Metro Animal Services, which Stephanie Jackson very clearly explained on my live stream a few weeks ago. The 5-day stray hold is initiated only when the dog is brought to the shelter and registered. It is not officially started by putting it online. Even on Metro Animal Services page, it has to be brought in. They have to have their hands on the dog. They vaccinate them. They take a picture. They post them on their website. They do a quick vet check if necessary, and then they let you bring that dog right back home with you. Talk about how rewarding that is. We'll go back to Megan real quick because you've done it so many times. Both Desiree and Megan and Laura and Lauren and all the other people have done that on a regular basis. Everything that you need is given to you by LMAS. Megan.
If you need a crate, they give you a crate. They can give you food. They take care of all the medical. You don't have to worry about that. If you need anything, any kind of support, like a different kind of harness or something, they can help you with that. They are there to support you. They want the community to get involved. You don't have to spend your own money. You don't have to pay for the vet bills. They are there to support you.
Leashes, collars, beds, crates, a bag of food. The other thing that's important to know is it doesn't cost you a cent to be a field foster. People say, I can't afford another dog. I found this stray. What do? I can't afford another dog. Take it and register at Metro. Become a field foster. If it continues past the 5-day stray hold, hopefully you will continue to foster through its spay, neuter, and microchip. And then it will have an opportunity to go up for adoption. And that by that time, we hope you've become so attached to the dog that you're not going to want to return it and try to get somebody else to adopt it. So very important to know, it costs you nothing to be a field foster. You can also apply to just be a foster. It's a little different from field foster in that field fosters are the ones who find the dog and take it directly to the shelter. Fosters are those who go and actually get dogs from the huge census. And as we said just 2 weeks ago, nearly 750 animals in the care of Metro Animal Services, in Animal House, in the shelter segment, and in the foster care of all of their volunteers. That is an enormous number of animals. And that is 165 kennels worth in the shelter itself. That's what it's designed for. There's crates in every hallway. There's crates in every office. Dogs are going to visit the people who work there every day to get them some outside time of the kennels. It's just overwhelming to think about how many animals are there right now and then how many more are on the streets. So we want to talk about crate and rotate a little bit, Lauren, and can you hear us now? Can you speak? I'm not getting any sound from her. I don't understand why she's having so much trouble.
Tara, can I say one more thing about the fostering?
Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Lauren, you are muted. She's muting herself, and I don't know that she knows it. But
well, she was on twice. She dropped both of them. Now she's going to come back.
She was trying 2 different devices, but that's okay. Go ahead, Desiree.
Yeah. So just on top of what Megan was saying with the field fostering or fostering in general, a lot of people, when they go to adopt a dog, they want to know, how are they with kids? How are they with cats? How are they with other dogs? Well, a lot of that isn't known unless the dog is fostered.
Right.
That's how they learn about the dog. If the dog stays in a kennel, they have no information other than, no, they do okay in the kennel. So fostering is really, really, really what helps LMAS to get the dogs adopted.
They call it, what do they call it? Like rent to own?
Yeah.
Foster to adopt, rent to own. So you can find that out. And as we say, we don't recommend bringing a dog straight from a shelter into a home and immediately incorporating it into your pack. We really, really strongly recommend crate training, teaching the animal to be, in a crate and safe and comfortable, and very slow after the stray period, after the disease quarantine period, very slow introductions to every family member, especially kids, other dogs, and cats, because as they say, there's no way to determine all that while the dog is sheltered. Lauren, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I have no idea what happened.
Talk about crate and rotate, and talk about how to manage your own pets with stray animals that are brought into foster.
First of all, right now I have 7 dogs and 5 cats in my house. One dog is an LMAS foster. One is a private foster for someone who lost housing because they adopted the dog. One is a boarded dog, and then the 4 are my dogs. And I have crates for every single one of them. I feed in crates, and currently there are 2 dogs inside with me while the rest are outside for a moment because the 2 males don't get along, and they don't have to. Dogs don't have to get along with each other, so they're not out at the same time. And it's really honestly as easy as that. And if they weren't outside, just to give them a minute, they have water and everything out there, just to keep them all from being rambunctious in here, then they could be crated and some could be out. And I want to just show you really quick a setup, which my house is a little bit of a mess, but I have crates all throughout here, and that's where they all stay. And if I'm overnighting a dog or field fostering a dog, they do not stay with the rest of them. I have a separate crate set up in my laundry room, an airline crate, which is harder for some of these dogs to break out of, though most will be crated. And I exit through my garage instead of taking them out the front or through the back like I would with my own dogs until I know that they have had sufficient quarantine. And honestly, that's not even required. You just need to separate them from the animals in your house to assure that both parties will stay healthy, or if foster or new dog were to fall sick, then you could keep it contained to just that one animal. So there's all different reasons to crate and rotate. And for those who are waiting on spay neuter, that's a good way to prevent unwanted pregnancies in dogs until we can get those resources out to people, which I know, as everyone has said, we are working on that, and vaccinations and chipping and helping people contain their pets. And I'm very lucky that I have all of the resources I do. I'm lucky I have a house and a fenced-in backyard that came with it, and I recognize that. And I have to think that our community can use the common sense to keep their animals safe. And again, every time, like they were saying, every time we go out, whether we find the dog we're looking for or not, we end up finding a dog almost every single time. Or
Right.
We find people who have dogs who are uncontained, and lately, due to Megan's Amazon wish list, we have been able to provide leashes, collars, harnesses, and other resources that just aren't available. There's no good place to buy these things.
It's very expensive for a lot of people in this city. And I'm showing my t-shirt right now just so you guys can see it. The symbols say snip, chip, tag, and contain. There's little scissors, there's a microchip, there's a tag from a collar, and there's a fence. And we got inspired. We had this hashtag for quite a while, but we got really inspired and started laughing about the fact that Lauren showed up at the October Pagarita Fest with her 4 dogs wearing t-shirts that each had the symbol snip, chip, tag, contain on the 4 dogs. And it really inspired us. And Laura went ahead and had a design made by Louisa Kleinert and got these t-shirts printed, which are available. And we will post the link. Riot Heart just said, I want a shirt. So awesome. We'll get you the link to that. So Laura, if you want to pop the link into the live stream for the bonfire, that would be terrific. Summer Dickerson is on the live stream. I've sent her the link to ask her if she may not be able to. She may be driving or she may be doing something else. But I asked her if she could pop in to address the issue of the unhoused companion pets, because that is a huge, huge barrier for a lot of people who are not living between four walls and a roof. The companion pet issue has become such a problematic situation that is addressed by great organizations like My Dog Eats First, the Forgotten Louisville, Fern Creek United Street Reach. They all go out, they do all this work for the unhoused population and their companion pets. So food is addressed, leashes are addressed, veterinary medical is addressed, and sometimes the vet bills for those, My Dog Eats First vet bills, I can't even begin to tell you. It's comparable to what PBSF has to deal with. And they all support each other. But my God, the dangers to a dog on the streets, the dangers to a dog living outside, being out in this heat. This dog that we caught today was absolutely heat exhausted. She had raw pads. She had wounds all over her legs and feet. She was limping very badly. And she was in peril because she was right down at Central and Taylor, running in the street, running around the neighborhood, crossing streets, trying to find shade. That's 1 day or 2 days for that dog. There are dogs who are out for months, and then there are dogs who live outside permanently. Some who are lucky enough to be with their unhoused companion who's with them 24 hours a day. Some who are just chained in the backyard and left there and treated like lawn ornaments. So, there is a tremendous amount of effort going in on so many fronts. But this call today, this wake-up call that we had today with the potential distemper diagnosis, which thank God turned out to be a negative diagnosis, the dog did not have distemper, could have been catastrophic. It's the kind of outbreak that could shut down a shelter, cause a mass euthanasia event. If it were brought out into the city, if it were taken out in fosters, or if it was in a stray population, those kind of outbreaks are just as bad as the pandemic was. It spreads like wildfire. People don't take precautions. People don't do the things that they need to do to prevent. And we always say prevention, 1 ounce of prevention is worth 100 pounds of cure. If you get your puppy shots, you get the DAPP, also known as the DHPP, for your puppies, you don't have to worry about distemper, parvo, hepatitis, or parainfluenza, which is the dog flu. If you get those shots early on, and so many people don't have the resources to be able to do that. Laura, talk a little bit from the rescue standpoint of the dogs that you get in that you have to deal with that could have been saved so long before, and they have gotten to a point where now we're seeing different strains of parvo that are affecting adult dogs, diseases that are coming in from dogs being shipped in from out of state and bringing things to Kentucky that we've never experienced, dogs that are far beyond saving that you guys have to deal with, and the cost of veterinary medicine, plus the lack of vets and vet techs right now that we're suffering nationwide.
So, we have not ever seen distemper or rabies ourselves. We've mainly dealt with parvo. Parvo mainly affects dogs under a year old. It is easily prevented by a series of 3 vaccines. You start it at 8 weeks, and then it's every 3 weeks afterwards. And with that vaccine, they don't get parvo. It's, gives them complete immunity. When they're with their mom and nursing, they have the immunity from their mom, but as soon as they're separated from their mom, they start quickly losing that immunity. One of the things we see so often, especially with pit bulls, is everybody wants to get their 4-week or 6-week-old pit bull puppy.
Yep.
For so many reasons, that's wrong. They need to be with mom in nursing until they're at least 6 weeks, at least. Then they need to be with their siblings for 8 to 10 weeks. Something we hear so often is, I got my pit bull puppy and it's so wild. It nips. It doesn't know how to, it's nips on my arm. It's always biting me. It doesn't know how to interact with other dogs. All of that has to do with socialization. And all of it goes back to the fact the puppy was taken away from its mom and sibling too early.
Right.
They teach each other bite inhibition.
Yeah. Because that's how they learn, hey, if I nip, mom nips me back and it hurts, so I stop doing that. If I'm playing with my siblings, I learn how to play appropriately, because if I'm out of hand, then they correct me. Or if I'm really acting up, mom will correct me, and that's a big deal. So it's just simple things like that. But the vaccinations, and I understand, I am not so naive or so, elitist to, it is a big deal. They're not cheap, and it's, but that's something I think when you're going to get a dog, you need to just factor that in. If you're looking to get a dog, call around to various vets to find the cheapest. I think it's Banfield or even some other places have these programs where you pay so much a month.
Pet Vet has it too.
Okay. You pay so much a month when you get your puppy, and you get all their vaccines included in that.
Yep.
So you're not hit with it all at once, but you're getting all the appropriate care for your dog. Because, and I'm not sure, because we do it, at various places. We use, various vets. But let's just say the DHPP series altogether is $75. And I think that's probably high, but let's just say 75. That's a lot of money, and you don't want to do it. And then your puppy gets parvo.
$4,000.
Yeah. And you have to go to an urgent vet, an urgent care vet. The few times we've had parvo, the last parvo litter I had, there was 3 of them. And we hospitalized all of them.
Yep.
Because we knew if we didn't, they would die. And, I was, even though it was part of the rescue, I said, at the time, we had other people with, helping me run the rescue. And I just told them, if you guys don't agree to this, that's fine. I'm going to pay for it myself, because I'm attached to these dogs, and I have to give them every opportunity to live. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, they all pulled through. It was very scary. My husband and I, the thought of parvo, literally strikes fear in our hearts. We scrubbed and scrubbed our basement. We have an area in our basement that is specifically for isolation.
Yep.
And that was where they stayed. Once they got home, they were healthy enough to leave the metropolitan. You still then have to quarantine them for 6 to 8 weeks, because they shed it forever.
Yep.
If you have a dog and it went in your backyard and pottied and it had parvo, that's going to be in the ground for years, 5 years at least. Parvo can also live inside your home and on surfaces for at least 6 months.
And with our highly transient rental population in Louisville and the huge number of rental properties in the highly affected areas, that problem, people say, I don't understand how my dog got parvo. You might have moved into a house that had it in the yard, and the homeowner did not remediate, which takes a tremendous amount of time and effort and a whole lot of bleach.
Yes. And that's there is parvo cleaner now, but you have to get that through a vet. But the only thing is Clorox plain bleach, not scented, not any other bleach, not generic bleach, Clorox. And it's crazy, but the other thing we tell people, we tell our fosters when we put puppies with them, we ask, how long have you lived in your home? Once we find that out, it's like, all right, the puppy can go in your backyard. But we tell them, no feet on the ground anywhere in public.
That's exactly what Jen Harrison just said. Another reason to not let puppies or unvaccinated dogs out in public areas.
But I'll go to, various festivals we have around here or activities, and I'll see someone with a puppy that's obviously 8 weeks old. Yep. Trotting down through, and I just start having anxiety, because I'm like, do you understand what you're doing?
Nope.
Seneca Park, Cherokee, it doesn't matter where you live. Parvo could be anywhere.
Yep. Chickasaw
Anywhere.
Park, Shawnee Park, down at the waterfront, in the public areas where we walk every single day downtown Louisville, anywhere. And that's why one of our other friends and partners, Isabella Christensen, has been mixing up the Parvo cleaner and handing it out to each of us and telling us wherever we're walking in the downtown areas that are highly infected. And right now, Parvo is on the rise in a couple of particular neighborhoods, which really scares us because those are the neighborhoods with the highest need, with the most loose dogs, which we're in the most often. Even just cleaning the shoes that we're wearing and not bringing them in is hugely important. So, Megan, I want you to go back a little bit more and talk about the need for people to communicate with the city, the need for people to write to their Metro Council people and to the mayor, and to direct the attention where it needs to be directed, because people scream, why can't LMAS do something? LMAS can only enforce the laws that are written. And there have to be laws that are, the ordinance at this point needs to be recrafted. I know several very, very good Metro Council people are aware of that. They've even talked about making a small group of people whose animals are the top of their hearts within Metro Council, which we would really appreciate. But right now, it's important for people to take action. So the call to action tonight is we are asking the city to recognize our state of emergency, doggy style, and do something. Not only talk about it, not only be keyboard warriors, but to take the time to sit down and write to your Metro Council people, call them and ask them for a meeting and express your needs and desires. And you have great experience doing that, Megan.
We as a community have to talk to the people in power, and the people in power are our Metro Council members. Mine is Ben Reno Weber, and I've got an email that he just responded to me today about, and he reads those emails. Find your representative and contact them, and find where you work and contact them if you have stray animals around there. The important thing is to say we need mandatory spay and neuter with exceptions for breeders when you get a certificate for that. But everybody should be spayed and neutered. There's no way out of this solution unless you get a certificate of where you won't have to spay and neuter. But that should just be the baseline in the city. We need funding for that. We need to ask our Metro Council members to put funding for vaccinations, as we just went through this scare. It shows how important it is. I can't tell you how many times I go into communities and I find people with puppies and older dogs where they say, I rescued this dog off the street. It had no one. So they're unofficial fosters. They don't get any support. They don't have the money sometimes to go pay for all of these vaccinations and spay or neuter. We need to support them. The city needs to support them. My friend Marcus, he took in, his puppy is called Gracie. This dog had nowhere to go. We're now working with Marcus to get him into a clinic to get vaccinations, and then to work with PBSF Dog Rescue to get Gracie spayed. But a lot of these folks are working behind the scenes, and we need to all come forward and say, this is what I'm observing. This is what I'm doing. This is what my neighbor's doing. We know the problem's bad. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to give more funding to LMAS. I need LMAS to offer more low cost and free spay neuter vaccinations. I need you to recognize the pet crisis in the city and help people and send mobile units into neighborhoods. We need to reach people where they're at. We need advertising. We need to say, hey, go get a great dog at your shelter instead of buying them. There's a recent statistic out there that says this year, if 6% more people decided to adopt versus shop, that would solve the stray issues in shelters in the euthanizations. 6%. We need messaging to say, go to your local animal shelter. We have awesome dogs. I go on, if I'm watching news here on television, I see buckle up and put your phone down ads, a little catchy rhyme. We need something saying ship, tag, contain. Absolutely. And tell people how to get to those resources. And when you get people that are willing, what's the worst is I have all these people willing and wanting to spay and neuter their dogs and wanting to get vaccinations. I don't always have places to send them because LMAS doesn't have the resources. because rescues are overwhelmed and they need people from the community to help and fund rescues like PBSF Dog Rescue. Tell Metro Animal Council or your Metro Council members that you want them to better fund LMAS, right?
Well, let's also mention the fact that Spay Anyway is doing a great job working with several other counties, and you can reach out to Spay Anyway, Rebecca Eakins on Facebook. They are getting people very, very good deals to get their animals spayed, neutered, microchipped, and vaccinated outside of Jefferson County, which is very helpful. And there are a number of opportunities that are coming up through various Metro Council districts where they have actually recognized that there is a need for these things, and they have had microchip clinics. PBSF and our team did a microchip clinic at the Jeffersontown Farmers Market in the spring. Thanks so much to Mayor Carol Pike for co-sponsoring that event. And within a couple of hours, we had 42 dogs microchipped that never would have done it. Unfortunately, J-Town is not an area of high need. It's a fairly affluent area compared to the other areas. And one thing I want to Lauren, I'm going to let you respond in just a second. You said you wanted to. One thing I want to remind people of is during the pandemic, when everybody had to go to a central location to get their shots, it was a slow roll. It was people coming down to Broadbent Arena and driving through and getting their shots. Once we got into the community centers and the churches and the small locations all around town where there was not transportation, that's when people started getting shots in the arms. That's when the virus started to get slowed. So taking to where we meet people where they are, taking the resources to the community is an absolutely critical part of spay, neuter, microchip, vaccinate services that the public needs and wants and necessarily cannot afford. Lauren, go ahead. You were going to respond.
Yeah, really quick to that. I was one of the volunteers at Broadbent when they were doing the vaccines there, and I saw that it was an extremely slow process. I got one of my shots in Frankfurt, and both of those were so inaccessible to so many people, and it mirrors this a lot. And I wanted to say that, like, I put an extra emphasis on the fact that our team is largely called to help our team and rescues and all of these resources to help and serve the communities that are already experiencing this drastic lack of needed resources, both for the people and the animals, because it's not a coincidence that neighborhoods with high poverty rates, high houselessness rates are the hotbeds of these animal issues. Because these places are the food deserts. They have limited access to medical and mental health care, high rates of houselessness, addiction, and whole communities. Really, I was talking about this in our little group earlier. They're collectively in survival mode.
Right.
So it doesn't make, I should say it differently. It makes perfect sense that animal welfare becomes a back burner issue when the humans are in peril all the time.
That's right.
And they're already trying desperately to make ends meet. And, with inflation, everything that's been going on, those goalposts just keep moving farther and farther out of reach. Animal issues that we are facing and they are facing together, it cannot be fixed without addressing the socioeconomic issues. And this community is really good at turning a blind eye to those and saying, well, my community over here in the East End is fine, and then what? They never go past the Highlands.
Well, let's all add on to that too. There is an inextricable link between domestic violence and animal abuse that we have already addressed in our ordinance. Thanks to Councilwoman Paula McCraney and Joy Keeley, who was the author of that ordinance. We addressed that link between if they're having issues with domestic violence, whether it's children, partners, elders, people with mental health issues, people with substance use disorder, all of those things combined, animals are also suffering, and it's not something that they build on. It's not start with a dog, move to a kid, move to an adult. It's all happening concurrently.
Yep.
So we address that in the link, which is the link between domestic violence and animal abuse 2 years ago. And there's still only one LMPD officer who's phenomenal, who's in charge of that unit, and they need to expand that unit. We also have literally a dozen outreach teams working in town to address the companion animals of the unhoused and the unhoused citizens themselves who keep getting shuffled from place to place, the camp clearings, the camp, disappearances. It's very hard to serve the homeless when you don't know where the homeless are because they're getting rousted and moved all the time. The people who don't have access to transportation. When they catch dogs, they have to call on somebody else to come and get them, even to transport them to Louisville Metro Animal Services. So, it goes on and on and on. The number of connect the dots is what we call it. You have to constantly connect the dots to be able to understand the enormity of the problem. Yep. And that's one of the things that scares me the most is that people, if you don't see it and you don't experience it, it doesn't have to be real.
Yeah. My one single foster fail out of my dogs is my senior Allie, and she was not brought into LMAS as a stray. She was a court hold case with her 2 dog siblings from a domestic violence case. And at 13 years old, her life got ripped apart. The rug got pulled out from under her, and she landed with me because of domestic violence. And I was not willing to pull the rug out from under her again, which is why I adopted her and because I fell in love with her. And yes. My one LMAS foster is we knew her owners who were a houseless couple, and her and their other dog. It's a very long story, but she ended up in the shelter. She had an owner on file, so she had to spend her stray hold in the shelter. And then I took her on as a foster to try and help as much as I could, because even though we do the outreach, it doesn't guarantee anything. So I want her to have stability. And my other private foster is an LMAS adoptee whose family learned belatedly that their housing did not allow him in their breed restrictions. So I'm currently housing him until they can change their housing situation and have a place for him to be. And I think that just like between the 3 of those, even, it just demonstrates that there are so many different situations that can lead to animals being on the loose and without a home, without the people that they've always known. And then the people that continue to step up are the ones that continue to take them on. And we need new people, fresh people to take on these issues, because like I said, I have 7 dogs in my house and 5 cats, 2 of which are disabled and incontinent, and there's one of me.
Right, and so that's why everybody needs to step up, and Megan very clearly addressed the need for first-time fosters, the need for people who may have 1 dog or 1 cat to be able to bring another animal into their home. And Laura, talk from the rescue perspective of what is required by PBSF as opposed to what is required by a typical shelter to foster. Just talk about that foster approval process, because I want to wrap this up in about 3 minutes.
Well, before I'll hit on that real quick, but one of the things I want to say, and it kind of builds on what Lauren is saying, all of us that take in foster dogs, we have our own personal dogs. Right. And so often what I hear and what people say is, well, I tried it, but my dog didn't like it. And I just want to say, they're not going to like it. Our dogs are kind of like kids. Yeah. And you're all of a sudden bringing a new kid in, and they're going to be like, well, that's irritating. I don't like that. Do not assign human emotions or human ways of looking at things to the dog. Your dog can and will adjust. You have to work on it, and you have to realize it's going to take time for your dog to deal with a foster dog and for the foster dog to adapt. So don't right away, because your dog's flaring up or acting in a way that's unusual, be like, well, I can't do this because my dog. You have to give it time for the foster dog and for your personal dogs. And you really need to know your personal dogs well. They need to be trained. If your personal dogs aren't socialized, you need to start that first before you try bringing a foster in. Right. But keep in mind, it's not just the foster dog who's adapting. Everyone in that house has to adapt, and it's a learning curve, and it just takes time. And you need to be calm about it. You need to remember you're the boss, not your dog. and they need to learn that, hey, this is the way it's going to be. I still love you. Everything's good, but this is the way it's going to be.
Absolutely. So to become an LMAS foster, you just have to reach out to them on their website and apply to be a foster. You can field foster any dog. If you find the dog and it doesn't have a microchip, it doesn't need immediate medical attention or has to stay for medical care, you can foster that dog immediately by taking it into your home after registration at the shelter and saving its life as well as the life of a dog that may have to be euthanized to make space for it. That's huge. Laura, talk to us about quickly your foster process. Who do we reach out to?
So we have, if you go to our www.pbsfdogrescue.org, you'll find the application to foster for us. We are basically very similar to LMAS in the fact that everything's provided. Right. All expenses, food, crates, everything is provided. Medical care is taken over. We will help work with you. One of the things is we don't just be like, oh, here's a dog, you have to take it. We, talk to our fosters to understand what they can and can't do, get a feel for their dogs and things like that to really understand, what kind of dog they can foster. We have some people who can only foster puppies. We have some people who can only foster small dogs. It just depends. And, the one thing I will say, and then I can promise you with PBSF, we will give you support in every possible way. As a foster, as an adopter, is whatever you need, we will make sure you get it. We work with a trainer. We just had a dog right now go through a board and train, and she's with her foster. She went home with her foster parents on Monday, and it's going excellent. Good. But it was the dog needed a whole lot of work, and we knew it. We committed to it, and we gave everything that she needed for her to be successful and for her fosters to be successful. And that's what we're about. It's about doing what the dog needs, to make it work. And, our adoptions can take a little bit longer, of course, than LMAS because we have kind of a more detailed process, I would say. But, if anyone,
you also have a minuscule return rate that I could probably count on one hand or less.
Yes. I mean, our return rate is very, very small.
So Pets for Life is also, Jen Harrison is working with Pets for Life, one of our wonderful team members. They're going to have a core vaccine and microchip clinic for $20 in Chickasaw Park on July the 21st. More details coming from Pets for, the number 4, Life, Louisville at Chickasaw Park, July the 21st. Be watching for that. If you need to get your dogs vaccinated, and certainly should get your dogs microchipped, core vaccines and microchips, $20. Listen, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for taking the time after a long, hot day out catching that poor dog in Taylor Berry, coming off of 4 days of going after Rose, who was unfortunately let out by somebody unauthorized from the Happy Hounds in Middletown. 4 long, hot days trying to get that dog. Thank God she finally surrendered to a good citizen's porch and allowed him to capture her. But we really wanted to get her home safe, and we're so glad that was a good outcome because there are far too many bad outcomes, so many dead animals that need to be identified before they are taken to the landfill with the garbage and the wildlife. So many loose dogs that are running, coming up on people's porches and knocking at the door for help, and people won't let them in. Dogs that are running and getting hit and lying and suffering. Dogs that just become literally feral because they cannot be taken care of. Dogs that are giving birth in piles, like the Rita's team tonight, catching the dog down on Cane Run Road, then discovering the puppies and still looking for the male dog. I mean, all of the people who are out working on a daily basis are doing a phenomenal job. We appreciate you staying with us. Good retention throughout this live stream of people who care. We appreciate you very much. And we want you to share the live on every Facebook page you have, every group that you're in. Please share the information. And most importantly, share this hashtag, SNP, CHIP, tag, contain. And then at the bottom right, ask me what it means, because you want to start that conversation. New to your dogs, microchip your dogs, put collars with tags on your dogs, and contain them on fences, in fences, and on leashes. If we don't have dogs running around loose, we're not going to have to worry about all of the other things. So containment is the most important number one thing that you can do is keep your dogs from getting out and running away. So I want to thank you all. Desiree Johnson, thank you so much. Megan Thomas, Lauren Kasdan, Laura Hogue from PBSF Dog Rescue. Thanks, Jen, for the technical support here. Tammy's on. She's one of our team members as well. Sarah Tidwell was on with us, and she was willing to speak, but unfortunately, she had people arriving to pick up some kittens. So that was a good thing. But please, you guys, hashtag it, snip, chip, tag, contain on every post. Share the live, share the posts that we put up. Whenever there's a lost dog flyer, put it up. But for heaven's sake, we say 1 ounce of prevention is worth 100 pounds of cure. Hashtag snip, chip, tag, contain. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Really glad it was a negative distemper test today. But again, this was a wake-up call for the city to realize we are not putting animal welfare where it needs to be, and we are demanding prioritization for our animals here in Jefferson County. We don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel anymore. So thanks for listening to us, and I'm glad I had a few backup voices to actually amplify the message that I harangue people about all the time. You guys look a lot nicer and sweeter, so I'm really grateful that you actually had some things to say, and thank you all so much for the hard work that you do. We appreciate you guys.